Welcome to the Dance to Heal podcast. I'm your host, Jenny C. Cohen. Join me as I share stories of how life is a dance. I'm a cancer survivor, mother of two, and an award-winning performer who found that mind and body connected movement is vital to healing in a way that is safe and tailored to your life. I created Dance to Heal Wellness featuring the Spotlight Confidence Formula and also authored the best-selling award-winning book, Outside In Recovery, Dancing My Way Back to Myself After Breast Cancer. I will bring new ways to help you on your dance journey and healing path. Are you ready to move? Dance to Heal starts now. Welcome to the Dance to Heal podcast, and I'm your host, Jenny C. Cohen, and today I have a very, very special guest for you today. And I'm going to read some of his introduction, but just know that in the description of this episode, his full bio will be there, okay? Now, my special guest, Tony, has one simple standard. Say what you do and do what you say. He's the host of Work Sucks, But I Like It, a manufacturing leader in high-stakes aerospace environments, and an author who challenges the comfortable lies we tell ourselves about burnout, motivation, and success. You're the perfect guest right now, Tony. Welcome to the Dance to Heal podcast.
No, thanks, Jenny. An honor to be here.
I know that my audience, most of them are high achievers or want to be high achievers, and we're all on the burnout, whether or not it's directly from us or the fact that we're all connected as humans and we're feeling the collective burnout of the world, right? And I would love for you, if you'd be willing to tackle this question, what is burnout actually?
Yeah, I mean, let's just for the record, I've definitely burned out, right? So, I mean, I do a lot of things, right? I like to distinguish between doing and being. First off, I think this culture really focuses on doing a lot of things, and I think that sort of adds to this idea of burnout. For me, burnout is like the time when you have too many things that you're balancing and you have like almost equal expectation that you're going to be great in all of it. So it's like you're just so overwhelmed with all this relative work in front of you that you literally can't show up to do any of it, and you just sort of like fizzle out. And that's why I like distinguishing between the sort of doing and being, because I can do a lot of things. We do a lot of things, right? We all do things from getting up in the morning to brushing our teeth to fighting gravity to fixing our hair to getting in our car to go to work. But I think we need to really start integrating this idea of who are we being in those acts of doing? And that's helped me try and stay clear of burning out.
That's a wonderful distinction. So how does one know if we're being versus when we're doing?
Oh, that's a great question, right? I wish we could stare into people's brains, right? We're not quite there yet, no matter what philosophy mind camp you're in. I think it really comes down to your own self-assessment, right? So I've done a lot of journaling. As you've mentioned, I've written books. I write for a magazine as well. I think it's important I think the problem of today is we don't practice enough our internal dialogue. And as a result of that, we're not sure what we're saying internally. Now, I'm not saying the internal chatter is making everyone insane, right? I'm not saying you got voices in your head. It's really just getting sort of a grip on what are you saying and why are you saying it? And there's this sort of harmony. That's why I love your podcast, Jenny, this idea of integrating music, this concept of dance and rhythm to heal. I'm a really big fan of that as a drummer myself. And so when I think about like what I say to myself, there's this certain resonance, right? So when I'm being someone, I can feel that, right? I can't describe it yet. Maybe there's science where I can hook some electrodes up and EEG will tell me my brain is in a flow state, sure. But it's going to be a qualitative assessment at this time. That's been my sort of assessment of whether I'm being versus doing.
I really, really enjoy that description because as an Asian American presenting woman in her 50s, my generation was that you were what you do. There was no differentiation between the two, right, Tony?
Interesting.
And for me, when I had and that's a lot of my audience too, where we associating our definition of who we are with what we're doing versus you don't need to be doing anything and you can be. And I love you bring this up for us.
But one of the problems, Jenny, is our culture is so used to having this custom of, oh, what do you do, Jenny? And then your question is immediately, oh, I do the thing that trades time for money. But you were a cancer survivor, you were a dance star, you were a mother, you're a wife. It's like that question really blows. And I hate that question. I don't know how to answer it. But I think like that podcasts like these, that you're doing, I think it's really starting to help change this conversation of what do you do? Right? Because I think it's such a lame question and a lame answer. Maybe it's just like an icebreaker, right? I was talking to my brother about that the other day, and he's like, it's more of just like an icebreaker. That's what you do when you meet someone. Hey, what do you do? It's just to get the ball rolling. But the problem with that, it just limits who you are because your response is that stupid thing that you do to trade time for money. And I'm not saying it's stupid, but I'm just saying there's so much more to a person than what they do for their job.
Absolutely. I mean, the very fact that your amazing podcast is called Work Sucks, but I like it. I mean, come on. That is the
Right.
epitome of what you just said, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Because, like, I still remember when my kids were training to be junior Olympians, and we were in the gym every day after they did homeschooling, every day before practice. That was the grind they had to put in so they could ultimately end up with their silver and gold medals, like highest score achievers for that particular year. But then they walked away. They're like, "We're done. We've achieved that. Check it off. We're done." It's like
Yeah.
that really sucked. That we don't want that abusive coach anymore, right? So there is that distinction though between that, because the other alternative to life not being hard, for my experience in my 50s, and I would love a different perspective, Tony, is that I can love it, but lifing is really hard. Like, lifing's hard, isn't it, Tony? There's an aspect to being a mother that's a grind. I'm in a marriage, 30 something years. That's work you have to put in, or you don't have a marriage.
Yeah, no, I love. I guess I think of the saying from Ziegler, right? When you're tough on yourself, life is going to be infinitely easier on you, right? And I think it comes down to expectations. I mean, really, hats off to your 30 plus years with marriage. That's a lot of work. I'm sure there were times that sucked with that, but I think like with an example like that, you kind of see the bigger picture. And I guess what do I mean by that? We're so in a culture of like, I need it tomorrow. Like thanks to Amazon Prime, it's like I need this thing today. Tomorrow, so I can plug it in and charge it and up my, levels on my game and my TV and surround sound system. And it's like these things that we're accumulating, as you can feel today, they're not satisfying this sort of like inner craving for this sort of like, I'll call it just like resonance with everything, this sort of harmony. We can't sit with ourselves. And the way we sit with ourselves is we sit in front of a TV and, we want more crap around us. And it's just getting to a point where it's like we have so much crap, we don't even know what to do with it. Right. So it's like our goals, therefore, are now sort of like they're nonsensical. It's like, I need a bigger house. I need this. And we're not talking in terms of like you just kind of mentioned that I hear a lot of conversations now. It's like, oh, I've been married for 30 years. Now I'm hearing like divorce rates are through the roof and I've been married for a year and we couldn't figure it out. Now we're divorced. And it's like, well, where's the work, right? Where's the work that's going into this? Like people seem to be forgetting that there has to be work friction that goes into succeeding at times. It's not all paved in gold and everything is, we're talented when we're, come out of the womb. It's like we got to put effort into these things.
I love this. And so, audience members, my audio audience, Tony looks really young to me. So if you go to YouTube, you'll see him physically. He looks like a baby, and
Yeah,
you're not. I know you're not. I don't mean to
38.
belittle.
So
38. Yeah, could still be a mom. I'm 57, so it's like,
it's
and
just a number.
and the
Yeah.
thing is, though, what's amazing, right, is that more and more of your particular generation understands this already, while most of us in our 50s and 60s are just beginning to embrace it. What you're saying, because for those of us who grew up, like, we're Gen Xers, right? I was the earlier Gen X, I think. Yeah, I'm an early Gen X. And for us, we didn't have anything. So the accumulation of things was a physical manifestation of our lack. And we didn't realize all it was doing was cluttering our house. And we don't need all these things. It's the experiences you take with you. You can't take all of your pretty things, that tchotchkes that you collect. You just can't. They stay
Right.
here, and then your family has to get rid of them. But
Exactly.
I
Yeah, yeah, right.
digress.
I know. Right. Yeah.
So,
Almost.
Tony,
Yeah.
for me, because I love that you're you Describe your work as a blend of psychology, flow science, leadership, and real world experience. Because right now, people are coming away from the hustle culture. But what's the other option then? What does someone else do then if we're not going to burn ourselves up working for someone else?
I think it's really about understanding this concept of flow. And I guess what do I mean by that? So I'm doing my PhD in it as well. So flow is that state people might have heard, especially as you as dancers, right? The music's going, you're feeling the rhythm, you're in this zone, you're in this state where there's this total control. There's this sense of time that's being distorted. It's almost like you are just, it's like the Matrix. Like you're kind of just, you're doing it. You're doing something really cool. You're living fully. And I think like what we need to realize with that concept is that flow has been correlated to a lot of great things in psychology, to well-being, to, optimal performance, to, optimal levels of consciousness. And when you look at that last one, optimal levels of consciousness, I'm an engineer, right? So I like to engineer things to be efficient and, with processes and whatnot. So when I look at my life, I look at my life as a process, right? We are a system, right? We're an open system. We have things coming in that we eat. I just ate, with my girlfriend, we had some vegan hot dogs, and some mushrooms on top. And, that's going into my body. I don't know what it's doing, but it's, giving me energy to now speak on your show, Jenny. And then, of course, the things that we don't need go out the next day. Right. But so there's this system. And I think like putting our engineer's hat on for living today, flow, you could make an argument for is, again, this optimal state of consciousness. So the question I would encourage people to now start asking is, well, how do I get in a state of flow? If the scientists are saying that this is an optimal state of being for the brain, now I do want to say that flow is very taxing on the brain. There's a lot of things that go into it when you're in these flow states. So it's important to rest. So there's 4 steps to flow. The first is struggle. So imagine that I'm learning a new dance move, right? I'm not a dancer, by the way. I love playing drums. I dance behind the drums. But say I'm working on this new dance move, right? And it's challenging. And I have some skills, but the challenge, I'm still not getting this twist. My arms are flailing all over. And then through the struggle phase, I'm learning sort of the skills and learning the challenges relative to the problem in front of me. Then I take a step back. Okay, I get off the dance floor. I say, whew, grab some water, talk to a friend, whatever. Maybe I come back the next day to the studio. And so I've released sort of attachment to that process of learning. Now I go back into the dance floor. I've, practiced numerous times these moves. The music kicks in. Now I find a flow state. And all of a sudden I'm grooving. I hit the moves, blah, blah, blah. The performance, it goes great. But after a flow state, there's the important need for recovery. And I think people forget sometimes that we need to recover. And I don't mean recover by sitting in front of a TV watching Netflix and binge watching that. I mean like active recovery in terms of going for a walk, doing yoga, things that are, guess dancing too as well. But I think when you start, looking at the 4 stages of flow and figuring how that fits into your day, you're going to start to be more efficient. I don't like that word efficient. I really like to say you're going to be living fully. That's how I'd like to really describe that.
Sorry, brief pause because I was taking in all this knowledge that you were sharing with the
Oh, no.
audience, and me. I was like, oh, that's cool, and that's cool. That's really cool. Wait, you have to answer him. He just finished talking. All right, so here's the thing. For me, I love the way you explain that because I'm currently in a 1-year study around the neuroscience behind dance, and there are actual brain pathways that switch on and off when you're learning new material versus when you're rehearsing versus when you're getting feedback versus when you're performing. And so all these
Love
things that
that.
you're saying, I'm like, oh, so basically this is just the ability to switch between all of those types of brain pathways, and that would be flow. I love that. And there is a whole thing in what I'm studying right now with the neuroscience of dance that discusses how there needs to be rest for the brain to process the knowledge you're trying to put in your body. And I was
Love
like,
that.
ew, that's another way what you were saying with the rest, right? Because
So this research, Jenny, that you're doing, you're going to be publishing this for us in the audience here.
I really should. I have a
Yeah,
first
I would
book,
love to
and
read
then
it.
there's going to be a
Yeah.
second book that's going to incorporate all this knowledge. Because I think people just don't understand, especially the adult learners. Just so you know, Tony, it's never too late for you to start dance classes. Like if your girlfriend wants to dance, you could do West
I
Coast
love it. Thank
swing or
you.
East
Yeah.
Coast swing. Those are really fun partner dances. They're good for. Well, you're not married, so you're still in the new stage with your girlfriend. But those of us who are a little old and married, It's nice because then
Nice.
the guy has to lead. I
Mhm.
don't lead at all, which is wonderful. Like the responsibility is my husband's to know. I just have to follow though, and I have to know how to follow, which is really different. Okay, so the
Love
flow
that.
state, I love that. And then let's say someone hates their job, but they have to stay in it. Because a big one right now, no one has the ability to freely walk away from health insurance, even if out of pocket is still expensive. You know, people will become homeless after one bout of sickness in the hospital. It's just too expensive, or there's some other benefit, or they're really close to being able to retire with benefits. How does one then stay there? Because if you hate the job, or maybe people you're working with, how does one survive that? How does one
Yeah,
get
I
past
guess
that?
no, yeah, that's a great question. I guess the first thing I want to say, Jenny, is that first off, I hate all these self-help books that are like, go find your passion and your dream job, and you'll never work a day, if you love your job and all this crap. And it's like, I understand that, right, to some extent, right? But if you look at a soccer player, right, do they really love all the training and the dieting and all this? Sure, they love playing on the stage of the World Cup, but it's like all these other things. Maybe they do. I don't, I don't know if it's a favorite soccer player. But I guess like for a person that's frustrated with their job, I guess I would say this. First off, I'd like to think of I believe the author was Michael Gerber. I want to make sure I'm giving the credit here. And in his book E Myth, he talked about this person that was frustrated at their desk job. And this person wanted to be an artist. And they were saying, "Oh, I'm at a desk job and I'm limited by my computer and my mouse and keyboard and I'm writing these stupid reports and all this crap." Right. And Michael said, "Well, wait a minute. What does an artist really need? An artist needs some tools and a medium, if you will, and then you can do art. It depends on how you define art, right?" So then said, okay, to this person, "Well, hold on. You have a computer, you have this mouse, you have this keyboard. How come you can't do art?" Right. So I think like, when you look at your job, now I know there's certain times I've certainly left companies for various reasons, right? Moving for family, moving because of workplace cultures. We usually one of three things, right? It's like your boss that you don't like, the workplace culture, or the job itself, right? And when you kind of assess those, I think like, when there is a certain threshold where it gets to in one of those where it's like, all right, I can't tolerate this crap anymore. I remember talking to a friend one time. I think we said it was like 20% of that crap that we can tolerate will stay at that job, meaning 80% I can just sort of deal with. But I think that the person, when they're frustrated, really has to, again, I go back to this concept of practicing that internal dialogue, right? Too often we are using a lot of other people's words and I know I have a lot of books behind me, but I like to, regurgitate my own words sometimes. But I think it's important for people to start really writing out what is it they really want, right? We've been so programmed to say, get a degree, get a job, get married. Those aren't bad things, but what do you want? Like, do you really want a promotion? Some people love where they're at. Some people love being an engineer or love working on the floor. They don't want to be a president. They don't want to do all that crap. They don't want to be a salesperson. So when you're frustrated, I think it really starts with just understanding, what do you value most? And so what do I mean by that is, value has two definitions, two meanings, if you will. And most people equate really the second meaning with the first thing. What do I mean by that? So they say that when I say something is a value, we think of what something is worth, right? We say, oh, with this car is valuable, my home is valuable. But if you look it up, that's actually the second meaning of the word. The first meaning of the word for value is that it's the standards for which you to live your life. And I think when you start looking at the standards for why you show up each day, maybe it is, hey, this job kind of sucks, but you know what? It's got the benefits. I don't mind it too much. Yeah, my boss kind of blows, but I like the work. But it's giving me insurance and I'm able to support my family. And they're pretty good with me taking PTO. So it's like you start weighing these things, it's okay, right? I like what I do as a aerospace, manager and whatnot. I was doing a training today and I loved it. I love talking nerd science to people that don't even know what the heck I'm talking about, but trying to just like educate them so they get excited about the process, and that kind of amps me up. But that's what I'd sort of recommend for those frustrated with where they're at. Just start again. I'm going to keep saying it. Practice that internal dialogue. Start journaling. Start having more intimate conversations, maybe with a therapist, maybe with your significant other, about what is it that you're sort of really, truly saying on the inside. And I think that's going to shed a lot of light as to why and how you think where you're at now today.
Oh, that's brilliant, Tony. I love that. And it brings to mind for a lot of my audience where the majority. Thanks for listening to the Dance to Heal podcast with Jenny C. Cohen. Come back next time to hear stories of inspiring triumph and learn more ways that you can heal yourself. To work with me and continue your journey, visit danceandheal.com. Are you ready to move?